some of the biggest spenders electorally in South Africa, like the EFF and MK, declare literally nothing. And the Political Party Funding Act is okay with that.
Okay.
Come on, it's bullshit. South Africans wanted Senzo Mchunu fired. They want Senzo Mchunu fired. He hasn't even been charged with anything yet. The former Minister Nkabane clearly didn't take Parliament seriously. So, and Parliament can't fire him.
The GNU, is it functioning?
It's moving along. I used to have conversations with public servants, senior public servants. One or two of them said, I'm telling you this so that if something happens to me, you can write about what I told you, but I think I'm gonna get killed.
Welcome back to Palatable Politics with me, your host, TJ Maslela. Welcome to the show. In today's show, we've got the leader of Rise Mzansi, chairperson of the Scopa committee in Parliament, and here to give us insight on Rise and his deployment, for lack of a better word, in Parliament. Mr. Songezo Zibi, welcome to the show.
Thanks, TJ. Thanks for having me on, man.
Can you walk us through how you went from the one side of being an editor and somewhat holding state and state institutions accountable to being in there?
Yeah, no, listen, the journey took longer than that. You know, I started my career at Volkswagen. Okay. And one of the reasons I got a job is because of something called the MIDP, the Motor Industry Development Plan.
Okay.
And Volkswagen got an export contract to export 54,000 Golf 4s overseas. And so instead of shutting down, the plant started hiring people. Okay. And I got hired as an intern, right? I'll tell you why that's important. I got to see government policy having an impact on my life. You know,
okay. That makes sense.
It was that direct. It had an impact on my life. I was able to get a permanent job a year later, buy myself a car, rent my own place, look after myself, help out at home, etc., etc. So I could see the straight line between a government policy and my life and the lives of many others. I mean, some people who were there with me are millionaires, like they're doing really well. And it all comes out of a government intervention. So later on...
So just context, without giving too much of your age away, roughly what era is this?
Oh, sorry, this is 1998.
Okay.
So in 1998, okay. Alec Irwin is a Minister of Trade and Industry.
Okay.
So, So he's the Minister of Trade and Industry. There's something called the Motor Industry Development Plan and so on. That's important later on for my editorship and so on. So and I'd always wanted to be a journalist. I moved there, I moved into mining. Mining was a complete opposite. Government policy was completely unhelpful. Not completely, okay. But rather unhelpful, let me say that, right? So I could see these within my career. I mean, I left mining because we were talking with government about the same things for years and like never getting anywhere. You know, so you move from government, like moving, changing people's lives to getting stuck, right? And I became a journalist after I went to the Financial Mail, then the Business Day. And I was writing about political economy and so on. So basically those experiences in my career helped me in how I either wrote or directed the editorial coverage of the Business Day and that sort of thing. And then later on, I mean, I went into banking and then I went into politics. So it's been a continuous journey for me because you see the same issues from different angles. But being a journalist, that's where I realized, things are bad. It was during the Gupta years, Baba.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the highlight, the story that you were like, wow?
No, so one of the big stories we did, one of the bigger ones was ESCOM. By the way, okay. You know, I invited someone, Jenny Lisby. She used to write for the Financial Times. She's really excellent with analyzing financial statements. So she came and did a 2-day workshop with a team on analyzing financial statements of monopolies and utilities, which are state-owned companies. Man, we saw things there that we had not realized are there just by looking at the same financial statements we've been covering. Right? That's when you start seeing like funny movements in the balance sheet and so on. So that improved our coverage. That also led to people like blowing the whistle. But it wasn't just ESCOM, it was SAA. It was SARS. We did the SARS rogue unit story, but from the other side.
Okay.
And I used to have conversations with public servants, senior public servants. One or two of them said, I'm telling you this so that if something happens to me, you can write about what I told you, but I think I'm going to get killed.
Did they get killed?
No.
Okay.
Fortunately, no. I later saw them at the Zondo Commission.
Okay.
They were still very much alive. They were still very much alive.
Who is this?
No, the one guy, I can't tell you, he's still in government.
Okay, fine.
He's still in government.
Okay.
Others have since moved on, right? Some of the other characters we were being told about in Parliament. So
Okay.
I won't mention any names.
But it will come out at some point. Okay.
Yeah. No, yeah, maybe in my memoirs. So the point I'm making is I got a sense of the seriousness. The nuclear issue was a big one. It wasn't so much that South Africa doesn't need nuclear in its energy mix. We were just buying too much of it.
Okay.
Okay. We were buying too much of it.
Like too much in the sense that you needed 8 and you're buying 10, or
We
like
were buying
you needed
9.6 gigawatts.
and we needed.
And so with anything, there are always two things. So let me put it to you this way.
Okay.
Somebody with 5 kids, family of 5 kids, a couple with 5 kids, you can't really buy an Iveco. Right. You might buy a V-Class or whatever. I don't know. Like a smaller thing that suits your needs. But if you have a 6th or 7th kid, they will still fit. So basically 9.6 gigawatts of nuclear was too expensive. It would take way too long. So you won't solve the load shedding problem now, right? Or in the near future, because it takes minimum 10 years to build nuclear capacities. And we're talking 2014, 15. That would only have been coming on stream now.
Assuming no delays.
No, yeah. So I'm sorry, it was a bullshit proposal. And I had a confrontation with Brian on 702 because he called. We had done a proper story on the thing. So he calls, he's just arrived at ESCOM. When I was in mining, I was one of the people from industry who were working on the energy, on the ERP. For 2008. I knew it like the back of my hand. He didn't. He was talking nonsense. Right? Okay. Because you need a good energy mix, right? You need coal, you need nuclear, you need other things, right? So that on a balance, the cost per kilowatt hour is something South Africans can afford. Nuclear, like I was saying, you've got 5 kids, you're buying an Iveco. Like, why would you do that? Yeah.
No, before we go into the politics now, Brian, you are an activist from a young age, according to research. And one of the important values instilled with you was from your uncle and his passing.
Yeah.
What are those and how did they impact you today?
The interesting thing about my late uncle and I is that we had like really little time. Okay. Right, so he went into exile in 1980, and I was 5 years old then. Right, I was like on the other side of. I was a kid. So my memories of him are actually the cops looking for him, and my grandmother going insane, both at the cops and at him for like just vanishing and not telling anybody where he's going and that kind of thing, which really affected her health, by the way. And so I had an experience related to his exile in the sense that the cops would come looking for, on a regular, in the way that they used to do it, right? And
can you tell us how that was? Just for some of us that might not.
There were terrifying instances where, for example, these guys came one time, and so they would like say, this your son is a terrorist, and when we find him, we're gonna kill him, and that kind of thing. And then they left a pistol. They were posturing. They put a pistol on the table with my grandfather and said, you are going to show us that you are not involved in this nonsense of his. When he comes in, if he comes here, you must shoot him. Right. my grandfather was a calm person.
Okay.
You know, my grandmother lost a shit. I'm sorry. So my grandmother lost it. So she says to these guys, which was the funny part of this experience, she says, I'm going to go out the back and make tea for my husband. If you boys are still here when I come back, you'll know exactly how hot, your faces will know exactly how hot that water is when I get back. So anyway, off she goes. They're talking and then they hear her coming back.
Okay.
They got out and they left.
And she came back with the water.
Yeah, she did. Yeah. She came back with the water and they left. Because she was so offended by the idea that, they could ask his own parents. But it kind of like shaped and radicalized me to an extent because he was then killed in 1982 in Lesotho. And, it just destroyed my grandmother's health. I mean, she just never survived and died in 1990. So when I went to boarding school, I more aligned with the PAC. I felt like, these ones,
Okay.
they want to do something more immediately.
All right. And then now, Rise.
Yes.
How did it come about? Why?
That was a journey and a half. So Rise, let me talk about my political journey.
Okay.
Right. So we had, with friends, right? Mzuki Sikobo, Prince, and so on. We had something called the Midrand Group way back in the 2006, 7, 8, right? We used to write a lot, but we actually used to have political discussions and have food and drink. I think that's when I started drinking. And we would always be debating the state of the country and what should we do and that kind of thing. And there were several options on the table. There was like maybe trying to agitate for change through the ANC. There was a time when we were considering infiltrating the DA and having enough people there to take over the leadership and moving it a little bit left. We were very inspired by Tony Blair and Peter Mandelson and so on, who did the same with the Labour Party, took it from the extreme left onto a center-left position so that it could win elections and that kind of thing. So, that kind of thing. And that's where I met Makashule Ghana and so on, and Kume, because we thought we could support the Black Caucus in the DA to kind of engineer takeover and that. So there were those options. Eventually, I just thought, we actually just need something new. These organizations have legacies, that are very difficult to change. The political language is all set and the people are orientated in a certain way. We need something new. But that part of the journey was myself, Luzuko Koti, Lukona, and Lorato Thinking, and we started Rivonia Circle.
Okay.
As a space in which we would do the thinking.
As a think
and
tank.
The testing. Yeah, as a think tank. Okay. As a space in which we would do the thinking. There is no Rise, no anything like that, no name, no nothing. We're still now trying to see what is the best way of influencing the politics in South Africa. And out of that came the opportunity to establish something. When I look at some of the people that are in Rise now, I look at Rivonia Circle events and I'm like, hey man, Lawrence, you were there. And he says, yeah, I was like, I didn't know. So clearly the political discussion and the way of engaging with the politics was attractive to a certain type of person who later ended up with Rise. And that's how Rise came about. In fact, the meeting where Rise, the idea to start something came about, is still on YouTube. We had live streamed the thing. It was at the Pactonian.
Okay.
And there was a discussion there. There was a fellow called Prince from the South.
Is his name?
I don't know. He was a guy that was there that came to the workshop. And we had like a grassroots activist from the US, Nse Ufo, to kind of talk about grassroots organizing and that kind of thing. And people are like, yeah, we gotta like start something. And they wanted to start it that day. So anyway, that's how Rise
Okay.
eventually came about.
So there's a concept which I think had the most important part, which is the content and the direction.
Yeah.
The last elections, Rise came out early, came out hard, had a presence, which begs the question, where's this money coming from?
Yeah.
And leading to the question that how does one move from, okay, we've got this idea, this concept, to getting the money to realize this dream?
So one of the things we realized was that everybody who was both plugged into politics as an activist and people outside of politics who are interested in politics were asking the same questions. Can we continue like this? Can we continue like this? 0.something% growth, 1.3, 1.5%, lots of corruption. And you must remember, the backdrop to that is the Zuma years also, where there's a lot of anxiety about where the country is going, and. Several things are important. The first one is that you need to be able to make a case with fundraising generally, whatever you're raising for. What are people who invest in things looking for? They're looking for the strength of the concept, the strategy, and the people. Do you have the people that can execute on the strategy?
Okay.
I've done quite a bit of capital raising in my life. That's not a conversation I struggle with.
All right.
Right. And I've been in politics one way or another from a very early age, all the way through student politics and so on. So my ability to engage with the meaning of politics and what this moment means for where the country should be, and convincing people that there is an opportunity to start something new and something fresh which represents progressive politics without the baggage is not a difficult sell. The question is, can we trust you to drive that message? Right? That really is the question. It helps that I worked in business for over 20 years. So it's not difficult. I don't get overwhelmed by being in the same room with somebody with money. I've done it for years, right? I'm just raising it for a different reason.
And so, just to be clear,
Yeah.
So you were saying that being in the room with the money and needing the money wasn't one that would have compromised whether it's your guys' position or your guys' view on something. I mean, one can use the example of the whole Palestine.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you guys find yourselves having to make a decision between getting money and contesting or an ideology and a position?
Yeah. So first of all, you also need to be quite clear ideologically where you are.
Okay.
Right? We don't believe in nationalizing everything, and nobody will get to talk about that. Right? You've just got to be clear. You know, one of my late uncles was chair of the SACP in Ortam, right? And he used to say, you know, we go to business people and ask for money. They go as the SACP. But they also, like when they go to meetings, they speak against them. You see, like, it kind of doesn't work. Okay? You got to raise your money then in other ways, because you can't speak from both sides of your mouth. You say, I want to shut you down, but please give me money so that I can get enough political power to shut you down. The conversation we're having a little earlier about how you grow an economy using public infrastructure and encouraging investment in public infrastructure, but for the public good, in a way that reduces the financial strain on government so that it can spend money on the social wage, right? It's a conversation you can have with people in business. Some of them are on the extreme side of things. Others are actually quite progressive in their outlook as well, and you can have that conversation. But there was a story in the Daily Maverick just the other day about, you know, like, people stopped fundraising for us over Palestine. There were people who wanted us to get rid of Irfan because he supports BDS, he's protested the Israeli embassy. The people just stopped supporting us. I mean, the company that was making apparel for us at the beginning, I know, by November 2023, they had cut ties. We had to go and get T-shirts somewhere else. Okay. Right? There were people that used to host fundraisers for us, which are stopped. And they told us they wouldn't be doing that anymore. So, yeah.
How would you, are you in a position to quantify how much you guys lost from your position on Gaza?
I can't. I just know that it's in the millions. Let me give you an example.
Okay.
There would be black people who want to give 300,000-400,000 rand, but now they're going to appear on the scoreboard, ne? And that person's business partners are Jewish, and now they give us 95,000 rand because it doesn't have to be. You see how it all adds up, right?
With that said, would you guys change the PPFA, the Political Party Funding Act?
I wouldn't change it necessarily,
Okay.
but there's a couple of things that are problematic. For example, some of the biggest spenders electorally in South Africa, like the EFF and MK, declare literally nothing. And the Political Party Funding Act is okay with that.
Okay.
Come on, it's bullshit. We know what it costs. I can tell you, I know how much it costs to have a rally of 5,000 people. Try 90,000 people, however many there were at the stadium. That's serious money. It's tens of millions. And then when they declare, it's peanuts. If you believe that, you will believe pigs fly. I don't care how good the accountants are. You don't. So basically, the posters just show up. The events just happen. The t-shirts just pop up. And people are okay with that. And then a party like ours that gets collectively 45, 50 million over the period of however long, you the rich guys who can't hire 150 buses like the other guys are able to do so. Like, come on.
Do you not think it could be a thing of creative accounting as opposed to...
No, it's not creative accounting. I'll tell you what it is.
Okay.
They get someone through whatever means, which might be legal or not legal, and the t-shirts just rock up at the event. The stadium just gets paid for. They don't declare it. How does the IEC believe that there can be that level of expenditure with little... I mean, I'm not saying they should take action against the EFF and MK and these other parties, but come on, let's call a spade here.
Okay.
So how is that act okay with that situation? And then they're going to chase you over a declaration. You know, we had a declaration, I think it was 330,000. Okay? We declare it. The person who gave the money is slow in declaring. Why is the IEC not on our tail? I'm like...
For 300.
What about those guys who declare nothing?
Okay.
So that's why I'm saying it's a problem. The second thing I want to say, which is the last one, people also have a weird relationship with how political parties are supposed to function.
Okay.
Okay.
Tell us more.
You get to organize, and I've organized around the country. People want t-shirts. A t-shirt is about $50. You probably know. I mean, and it's not $50, right? There are 400 people in the event. 50 by 400 is serious money. Where must that money come from? You need to go and get money. It doesn't grow on trees. So people say, you are not visible. Come to my area. But at the same time, why are you getting money from these and such people? But I won't give it to you.
With that said, Nab, how do you think our politics in our democracy should be funded?
No, I think we must encourage a culture of small donations, by the way. South Africans notoriously don't want to fund political causes they feel strongly about.
Okay.
And I think this is one of the areas where the EFF has been fairly successful. I mean, they use some brutal methods, especially for people that are in elected office. Like if you don't organize a bus, you're out, right? It shouldn't be necessary to do that because South Africans give 20 rand a month or 50 rand. They just don't do it, right? South Africans just don't give like that to political parties. they expect to be given a lot of costly stuff by political parties. You must organize food,
T-shirts.
You must pay combis to take them to meetings because they don't have money, they're unemployed and that kind of thing. It all costs money. And this thing doesn't work. I don't believe that the public purse should fund political parties 100%. I don't believe that.
Now, from inception, right? I'm sure that you guys had a target you guys wanted to get with your campaign plan, etc.
Yeah.
What was that target? How did you guys do against it?
No, we didn't do well against it. I think the target initially was about 20 seats. There was a time when it was plausible, right?
Okay. 26%.
No. Seats.
Oh, 26
no, which is
seats.
about
Okay.
5%. Oh, no.
Okay. No.
No. 20 seats, right, in the National Assembly. Things changed when MK came along for us. You know, in KZN, we could easily, in Durban, have a meeting of like 300 people, like in no time. Once MK came around, that came down to 40. And 10 of the 40 were not sure whether they want to be here or not. They were going with UBAB.
Okay.
You know, which was a problem for everybody. It was a problem for the ANC, it was a problem for Action SA, and so on. So we were organizing in traditional ANC strongholds because of the politics that we've chosen. Because we still believe that a progressive, grassroots-based politics is still the way politics should be done in South Africa. So we were kind of in areas where the ANC is, Orange Farm, Atteridgeville, Soshanguve, etc., which happened to be the places where MK was immediately strong because they split from ANC structures. And you can't compete with that when you're still trying to set up your own structures and you are new and that kind of thing. So that hit us. Second mistake we made, the mistake that we made was to try and be in too many places.
Okay.
We should have stuck to major, urban, regional, metros and regional towns.
Almost like Action SA's approach in the last.
Yeah. We should have done that. I mean, I went to villages so far from everything. We shouldn't have done that.
Why do you think they would have... Fine, I mean, no, the target was ANC voters. Why do you think they would have diverted away from the MK, I mean, from you guys to the MK? Because, I mean, when one looks at MK manifesto...
No, they didn't have one.
Okay, yeah.
That was not the point. The point was... look, I mean, what we were doing was new. The issues we were driving are new in the sense that they are often left to NGOs.
Okay, what issues are these?
So let me give you just 2 examples, or 3 quick examples. We're driving gambling right now. Gambling regulation, change in gambling laws, taxing online gambling a lot more.
Leave the sports fund just for a bit, but continue.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. So forcing them to do rehabilitation programs and pay for them and that kind of thing. Those are things that affect real South Africans. Politics in South Africa tends to be about the other issues, which are also important, which is like, you know, service delivery, housing, and so on, which is also important. We also drove hunger a lot. That's why Voice is an MEC for agriculture, right? Foods, because people are telling us they are hungry. Like, I am looking for a job, but man, like, I need food, right? So we're driving issues in that way, right? And people weren't really used to that as a political campaign. They tended to ask, are you guys an NGO? Because the idea that we are going to drive something that like affects you like that, usually there's some NGO that's dealing with it rather than a political party. So when somebody comes with traditional politics to you, and they're splitting from the ANC and they're swearing at the ANC also, then they're gonna go with that guy.
To what feels familiar.
Yeah.
Okay, then we get to the results.
Yes.
And before I come to the GNU and how that came about, at the IC at the Rock,
yeah,
I did have a conversation with you.
Yes. Oh yeah,
and
now I remember.
You called ANC DA IFP. You called it before the results were done, before they finished counting. What did you know? that we didn't?
Oh no, I had spoken about it publicly
Okay.
before. It's just that South Africans also don't listen. We had a public event with JJ.
Okay.
I gave a speech there. I said the future of South Africa post-election is being decided with business people right now. People weren't listening. That was on ENCA.
Which
right?
business people?
No, like business, organized business.
Okay. Is there that whole Stellenbosch narrative?
No, not like that. No, not like that. Not like that. It was clear because everybody gets polling, right? Mm-hmm. It was clear the ANC will battle to make 50%. And therefore, what should happen? What would be the less risky option? The less risky option is for the ANC and DA to work together because they have an unassailable majority between the two of them. I mean, I used to work in business. I knew people were talking to both parties, right? Saying, guys, whatever happens, if you don't win a majority, you gotta work together because it simplifies the arrangements. It wasn't like a government of national unity. So the reason I said ANC, IFPDA is because of the KZN element vis-a-vis the potential strength of the IFP,
okay.
right?
Okay,
because,
fine. Yes.
Right. So, but this was not a new discussion that I was aware of. And I had spoken openly about it before the election on TV. So
these businesses that are dictating this, I would assume from a natural assumption that if one wanted to find out who, one would go to the IEC website in terms of funding declarations.
No, not at all. I said organized business by the business organizations.
Okay, so your BUSAs, BBC.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, in the cabinet discussion, BBC was hectic involved. I was talking to them.
So you think, from what you're saying, there was a BBC, etc., that would say ANC going with DA would be a safer bet than...
No, not necessarily. I mean, BBC, for instance, didn't want DA. That's how I know. I was in the discussions. Okay. So I know. They didn't want DA. They had other preferences. But the point I'm making is that organized business groups were in the conversation about what must happen. The ANC the ANC consulted, by the way. The ANC consulted.
Are you saying it like as a bad thing? Or?
No. People might. The ANC spoke to people that I thought, I don't know if you guys needed to speak to those guys, but okay.
Like who?
No. I don't want to.
Okay.
I don't want to position people like that. But the point is, the ANC actually did consult, right? About the fact that the ANC hasn't won a majority. These are the things we need to get over the line as a country. We need to de-risk the environment and therefore we need to get into a coalition that's potentially stable, etc. I know the ANC spoke to, I think Nomvula Mokonyane spoke about it, even spoke to MKP. MKP wanted Cyril gone as a condition. Well, sorry,
So in your guys' discussions with ANC, what was discussed?
No, with the ANC, we took long, by the way, to decide, right?
Okay. About
the GNU thing, because we're not quite sure how it's going to work, because there was no global agreement for everybody, and that's still a problem for us, by the way. But the ANC basically said to us, look, guys, when we look at your policies, if you strip away all of this other nonsense that we fight about, we play in the same ballpark in terms of our outlook on progressive politics,
Agreed.
on political economy and that kind of thing. We would feel very comfortable working with you guys. And that was a conversation. But the question that I asked in the meeting is like, what do you guys want out of us? Why would you call us? What role?
What's the catch?
What role? No, not even what's the catch. What role?
Okay.
Right? You bring somebody into a coalition arrangement, into any relationship. This is the value I think you can add apart from politics. They couldn't really answer that question. I don't think they'd thought about it yet. Right?
Okay.
That took time to answer. But I also understood it's an experimental. It's an experimental thing that everybody's doing, and they were trying to recover and govern at the same time. Recover from the shock, and also form a government. So I cut them some slack.
Okay, and then the GNU, you guys decided. You ultimately decided, yes, you're going to do it. And then in terms of the negotiations for positions, etc., how did that go? And how did you land up with the Scopa chairperson?
We lobbied for it. So the ANC thought that they would nominate me for the Standing Committee on Appropriations, which is a committee that processes the budget. So this whole headache over the last few months would have been mine. We wanted the Standing Committee on Public Accounts. So we set about convincing the ANC. I spoke to John in the DA. We spoke to MKP. We spoke to EFF, said they would support Musi. Spoke to MKP. MKP abstained. So that's part of what you do. Just get someone not to oppose, so they didn't express an opinion.
Or not be there. But
they didn't express an opinion. The ANC eventually supported my chairmanship the day before the election.
Okay.
After many phone calls within and outside Parliament.
What was the tipping point for them to agree?
No. By the way, I guess I can say this now. So I called the Premier of Gauteng.
Okay.
He had just appointed voice. So I say to him, your colleagues are not playing ball. Right? Your colleagues are not playing ball. This is the role that we want, because I think in terms of my experience and general skill set, I would do really well in it, and I would really like to be supported in that role. He said, okay, let me make a couple of phone calls. And he did shine. He did make a few phone calls. I personally spoke to a few people. I spoke to Nomvula Mokonyane. I was talking to David Makura. I spoke to the finance minister. I spoke to Figile. There were lots of phone calls that were like doing this. Mdu in Parliament, the chief whip.
What I need to understand about this, and I think it's a general query that, especially in the build-up in campaigning, parties bash each other. No, not them. No, he's bad. And now you're making it seem like, everyone's friends, kumbaya.
No. It's not friends. It's not friends kumbaya. The thing is, once an election is done, you are left with the decision of the voters. The voters have decided nobody has a majority. You can't not have a government. You have to have a government. So you actually just need to get over yourself.
Which almost didn't have a budget.
Yeah. But you need to get over yourself. Right? I've spoken about having a hectic public spat with Brian on 702. We greet each other, we chit-chat, he comes to my committee, we interact. What's the point? You know what I mean? He's in Parliament, he's an MP, we've got work to do. I think if we spend too much time bickering, voters would get really pissed off.
No, true. And I think that was one of the reasons cited for some of the support lost in EFF. But it seems like something that they did address, some of the disruptions. So if you're to take us through Scopa, you've indicated that your skill sets, you think you would do well. But what Scopa what do they do? What's their mandate?
So Scopa follows the money once the budget is passed.
Okay.
Simple. Right? Our job is to help the Auditor General look after the money and the governance that affects the money and so on, right? So everything to do with that's the only way I can simplify it. So every entity that gets money from the budget appropriation is one way or another on our portfolio of entities to look after.
So when a department hasn't spent money and it goes back, it's you guys.
Technically,
or is it the more
that's appropriation. That's more appropriations. It's more like our mandate is to prevent financial loss.
Okay.
So when money goes back to Treasury, that's more for portfolio committee performance, meeting targets problem. We come in where you spend 95% of your money, but you've only achieved like 10%.
And then what?
Then we get
what
very interested. So our system works like this. There are some assumptions built into it. That you've got ministers who take Parliament seriously.
And that's not a reality. That's an assumption.
No, it's not. It's not consistent.
Okay.
So, for example, the former minister Nkabane clearly didn't take Parliament seriously. And Parliament can't fire her. So you do get stuck.
Well, what can Parliament do to a minister that isn't
A
accountable?
minister is an MP, so the worst punishment Parliament can do for you is to be censured, which means the entire National Assembly admonishes you for doing something wrong, and that's a vote to say so and so is going to be censured. So, Parliament is constrained from getting rid of MPs because it's not the MPs who voted that person in; it's the voters. Otherwise, the ANC would have removed, as an example, if they were so minded, if the rules allow that kind of thing, they could have removed all the opposition MPs because they had the numbers. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So there are reasons
that.
why that thing is there. But it needs all of us to respect the system, that when Parliament raises a concern, the minister rushes to address it. Right? Some ministers do it, others don't do it.
Is there a reason you didn't take a ministry?
No. Firstly, we were quite clear that we prefer to do the work in Parliament.
Okay.
Because in the role that I'm in, for instance, we are unlimited in terms of who we can hold to account. So you're part of the GNU, but you're not seen as part of the people who are the problem at the same time.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. So strategically, it's the right position to be in that you get to do the work that South Africans want to see. You are not seen as part of the problem where you've wasted money or like your department or some official has done X. You're the one who's holding people to account. You can also involve the public in the work of Parliament that we're doing. So there was actually rationale behind it. We said to the ANC, if the president still feels that he wants to appoint one of us, sure, we can have that conversation at that time. But just know that it's not a condition of these discussions that we get a ministry.
Why was that different in Gauteng?
The ANC was in a far worse position in Gauteng, right? They kind of needed other political parties. Otherwise, they also would have battled to be legitimate without a lot more political parties, right? Secondly, there was an opportunity to do something about hunger.
Okay, yes, you did mention.
Yeah, we did say that. So we decided to accept that role, that specific role. I don't know what we would have said if they had said something else, to be honest with you.
Okay, and then the GNU, is it functioning?
It's moving along, if that makes sense. And let me explain quickly. I mean, the GNU needs active political management. Cabinet works as cabinet, but at a political level, it doesn't. We only get together when there's a problem. Can't do that. We need to have a clear governing program. And it's not there.
But I assume that government Lekgotla would set out
that's
that
a government
plan.
Lekgotla.
Oh,
That's a
okay, it's
government
government. Okay, you're correct.
For instance, what do we focus on in Parliament? Okay, government Lekgotla, sure. What do we focus on in Parliament? What are our legislative priorities? Which laws must go through Parliament before others because they are important? All the parties in the GNU want something to show voters in 2027 and 2029 to say we've done X. Why can't we get into a room and say, hey, listen, guys, what are the priorities that are going to get us over the line? We might decide police reform and that kind of thing is actually a priority. We've got the numbers and let's push.
But what's stopping that from happening?
You see, this is the thing that I was talking about earlier today, which is you need the president and the deputy president to consciously drive this sort of thing, right? Because the president is also the head of cabinet. The deputy president is the head of government business in Parliament.
And the clearinghouse.
And the chair of the clearinghouse. So I must tell you, a significant part of the responsibility lies with the president and the deputy president, right? I understand they're very busy people in terms of state responsibilities, but man, they kind of like need to do this urgently. Otherwise, people are going to get pissed off with the squabbling within the GNU, and I think they already are.
Are you pro the GNU expanding, or?
I don't have a problem with expansion.
Okay.
But if you increase the number of parties with this problem we've just spoken about,
Okay.
What are you doing? Like, what are you bringing the other people into?
So in its current state, you don't think that it is going to last unless something radical
I
or
don't
fundamentalist.
think it's going to enjoy legitimacy with the South African people. It may last, right? Because the alternatives are uncertain, right? Especially the outcomes thereof and various stakeholders. I don't know, for instance, what a large chunk of voters would think if the ANC decided, let's just go with MKP. It would change the dynamic within the ANC and outside. So,
would Rise stay in the GNU if MK joined?
Most likely not.
Okay. EFF?
No, EFF, you can kind of work with them, to be honest with you, right? Because they've got a track record of having collaborated at municipal level with other political parties. Okay, so they have shown that they are able to work collaboratively with others. Okay,
because they're also given the chance to.
Sorry, because they were
also given the chance to.
Yeah, I mean, I live in Tshwane. The EFF MMCs, I don't have a problem with them, right? So it kind of changes the arrangement. But I'm sorry, like MKP has got criminal accused. Like for serious stuff, though. You know what I mean? You know, like Brian and I get along, but he shouldn't be on the transport committee asking Transnet to account to him.
But would it not make sense because he would have insight, or he would know? I mean, having the nuances, the bread and butter of it, he would know.
He's conflicted. Some of the problems emanate from his time there. I've had an interaction with him in our committee. He talks about the so-called state capture years. This is on YouTube. So I say, Honorable Mulif, which years were those? He's a smart guy, Brian. So he says, no, don't worry, Chair, I withdraw. There is a conflict there, right? I mean, I'm not saying, MKP is free to make his choices. But South Africans wanted Senzo Mchunu fired. They want Senzo Mchunu fired. He hasn't even been charged with anything yet, right? And I don't begrudge South Africans for wanting that because South Africans are fed up. So how does Parliament admit people who keep getting arrested for serious offenses? You know what I mean? So we've got to have standards here. Let's make a choice. Do we have standards or don't we have standards as a country?
So from the GNU, Rise, in terms of what your guys' manifesto, in terms of what you promised you set out to achieve, when you go back campaigning for the next election, whether it's local government or that, what are some of the things you would want to come out from your manifesto and say, look, we promised you this is what we've achieved, your key priorities?
No, there's a couple of things. I mean, the first one is we promised to fight corruption. I'm in the role. We're busy fixing the road accident fund and we're going to fix it. We're going to fix it together with the minister. Together with the minister. I must tell you, Minister Barbara Chrissy, she kind of moves slow for my liking, but she's also meticulous. In how she does. She's a meticulous person, yeah. She's meticulous in how she goes about doing things. She respects boundaries between ministry, boards and management and that kind of thing. And I think we're going to work really well together. And road accident fund impacts millions of people. And if we can fix it, make it professional, fulfill its mandate, save it money, hey, we take that to voters. We also promise to campaign on issues that are important for people. Gambling is one such issue. We can prove it. Ghana is Mr. Gambling in South Africa in the sense that he's the foremost spokesperson from Parliament's perspective who's fighting the gambling scourge, right? We promised voters we would do that. And that's what we're doing. Fuiswa is MEC for agriculture. Okay. She's begun a whole bunch of initiatives around food. So, we don't have a big caucus, but you can go to voters and say, we said we're going to do X, here's a track record.
Do you ever find yourself conflicted from having been on the editorial side, now you're in the politics side? Has there ever been a part where you're like I don't know, any type of confliction? Or
no. I haven't. I mean, I deal, even my previous publication, The Business Day and Financial Mail. Remember, it's not the first time. I mean, I left journalism and I went to ABSA.
Okay.
They were already on the other side of me and sometimes didn't like me much in that role.
The National Dialogue.
Yes.
There've been a lot of organizations pulling out. and political parties, you guys participated. What's the problem with the national dialogue?
I can't tell you everything I know about the problem.
Okay.
Suffice to say, not everybody is being honest about why they hold the views they hold.
Yes, because it doesn't add up.
No. Yeah. So if you think about the story of the seven, and this is what these are the accounts I've heard from different people involved. There's been a fight about money. The thing started at about 835 million. Then it became 770 million. Government said that's still a lot. And I don't know where we're going to end up right now.
But they did say 400 or something along those lines.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So there was a fight about money. There is a fight about the power of this thing to determine the direction of government. It's not a parliament. There are people whose expectation is that you're going to have a national dialogue and it's going to issue instructions to parliament.
Almost like an NDP or...
No, almost like a super parliament.
Okay.
You can't have that. There was an election last year. You know what I mean? At the end of the day...
people have spoken.
And the people have spoken. You can't have a parallel process. There are people who wanted that level of influence where the government then has to do what is the outcome of the national dialogue. I was talking to some of them there at the dialogue where I was explaining that you need lawful, legitimate power and parliament. So there is a crisis of expectations.
So, okay, I do understand that, right?
Yeah.
But from a civilian point of view, it almost does feel like, okay, you're telling us we're going to discuss something and get a position, but there's no obligation to implement it.
No, there can't be an obligation to implement everything. So what I've said, and I will say again, is the people that participate in these dialogues over time have an opportunity, first of all, to get together and start organizing and mobilizing together. A chance which they would ordinarily never get. And taxpayers are paying for it. You might as well use the opportunity to distill a set of priorities that you believe the country should have. Mobilize politically around those issues. And only vote for political parties that will drive those priorities. Whether it's in 2027 or 2029. It's an opportunity you've got. 1. 2, there is a chance to make some big political reforms out of this. Right? Participants in the dialogue may decide we want a change in the electoral system. They must go and mobilize for it. Because the government has provided the platform for them to come together. The government can't tell them how to organize. Right? They must mobilize. My fear is some of the people that are there think their job is sitting in a meeting and agreeing on a piece of paper and then someone else must run and do it. No, it can't work like that. People must be willing to fight for the things they discuss there.
What are some of the things you would want to come out
of the dialogue?
Yeah.
A combination of things. I won't repeat the examples I've made
Okay.
about changing the electoral system. I think that's a given, right? So I'll move on to other things. There are intangibles in our society, right, which are not just up to government. South African men hunt and beat up or kill women for sport. I don't know what must happen. There's an opportunity now for all of us to have the conversation about why we are so violent to women and how we can stop it and how we change our own cultural, religious and other doctrines, right?
And
Systematic changes. This is the opportunity to have that conversation, right? We need to have a conversation about why, even as we complain about corruption, we also so culturally corrupt ourselves. By that, I don't mean culture in the sense of what's your kind of, like, I see cops, I've been drinking, maybe, you know what I mean? And then later on you complain about someone else who's paid $1 million. It's the same, Baba.
The
Why are we so ready to do that? Yeah, why are we so ready to do that? Is there a way in which we can hold each other accountable? These things might seem unimportant, but you can't have a cop in every car in case that person tries to bribe someone and therefore they get arrested.
So just to circle back to get clarity.
Yes.
Here. So with everything said, agreed, makes sense. Organizations are now pulling out because of those, or are they the other issues?
No, there are other issues that I believe are valid. I mean, I don't think this thing should have been rushed and taken place this weekend.
Okay.
It was a mad rush. I got my invitation last week. Okay. And I got the program the day before, and I didn't have a delegate's pass. I had a guest pass.
Okay.
So it was a bit of a dog show. So to the extent that some of the complaint was, you don't need to do it now, maybe postpone it. I think they should have done that. Okay, that's fair. The second thing, it also needed a bit of communication beforehand. You had people there who thought that's the only meeting that's going to take place. You can't have people who are delegates not knowing that this is a kickoff event. You know what I mean? So it was a bit of a shambles from that perspective. So not every reason is illegitimate, to be honest with you. I don't think it's enough to pull out for me. I think those who are inclined to pull out have an opportunity to still come back and influence the process. Okay.
And the narrative out there of it being an ANC campaign.
No, it's not an ANC campaign thing. I have been in this national dialogue conversation for years. It does have its origins in the ANC's problems.
Okay.
Internal problems.
Okay, example?
In the sense that there were people who were worried that... so some people wanted this thing to take place before the election. So that you can basically do it like 94, where there's a deal before the election, you do an election, but you have the dialogue this side of the election, so that you've got an election, but it doesn't matter much. We're going to have a government of national unity and work together and that kind of thing. And we're going to try and cleanse the ANC of its problems. In the meantime, it buys us time. Yes, there are people who felt that way. I won't name them. They know themselves. But there were people who felt that way, right? There are people who feel that, this is the worst ANC leadership you've had in a very long time and you need another process to rescue the country and so on. I mean, I've said to those people, I'm sorry. I don't like the election outcome myself, but you know what? South Africans have given the ANC 40%. I can't take that away from them.
With that and our voting patterns and just culture, what do you think is more difficult in terms of, or what do you think is more essential in terms of influencing voter behavior or influencing leadership behavior?
I would say voter.
Okay.
Because South Africans can make better choices about leadership. South Africans are stricter with who's coach of Orlando Pirates or Chiefs than they are about who's mayor. Okay. We don't get bad mayors because they fall from the sky. Voters choose them. And then they complain later about the same person that they chose. And you're like, yeah, I was in Buffalo City for oversight in March.
Okay.
In Mdantsane, in Zone 2, the councillor rocks up and he looked like he'd had a few.
Okay.
And he sounded and smelled like he had a few, right? But he was in the meeting, slurring his way through it.
Okay.
And the voters are unhappy. And I'm thinking, this is your guy.
Where was this councillor from?
Eh?
Which party am I allowed to ask?
From the majority party in Buffalo City.
Okay.
So I'm like, but this is your guy. You chose this guy. Why enixakile ngumuntu wenu? So voter behavior for me, if voters were to become stricter, the quality of the leadership would similarly.
Okay. And then Rise, for the next election, what do you guys think would be on your next... How would you guys go about the next election?
Differently.
Yeah. What would you do differently?
Differently. So firstly, we wouldn't be everywhere. We won't be everywhere. That's important. The second thing is that
where would you be? Sorry.
We are... So, like I said, the major centers,
metros.
But in all the provinces.
Okay.
So it's not just metros. So, for instance, in the Eastern Cape, there are major centers like Mthatha, KSD and so on. You gotta be in places
Which
like
is
that,
violent.
right? You gotta be in places like
Nelspruit.
Enoch Mkijima, Queenstown, that area. These are major centers, so you gotta try and be there. So that's the one thing we wouldn't do. The second thing is the quality of the person who runs is important. There's an interesting thing. The people who've got time to organize every day are usually people who also are struggling to find work because, there's high unemployment. Voters have a funny thing. Sometimes you talk to people and they're like, yeah, no, we know SIPO. But what problems can SIPO solve for us?
Okay.
So you do need a bit more time, and we have a bit more time now, right, to have a conversation with voters about, listen, if this is our guy, ne? So you're going to need to vote for him or her. You can't later on, after this person has been organizing you, we've trained them, and so on, now you don't like them.
And personally,
Yes.
for you, now I'm reflecting, which hasn't questioned your integrity more, the political space or the business space, or corporate space rather?
No, none of them. Questioned my integrity.
Yeah, like
politics. The media, I get a lot of, people are extremely suspicious of journalism, and you often get accused of corrupt. Same accusation, by the way. You are in the pockets of whoever and so on. It's similar with politics. I've actually found them to be the same, where people just accuse you of things which are like not true. So I haven't seen a change, but it's more journalism and politics than business and journalism, interestingly.
Okay, no. Thank you for making time for us.
No, thank you.
Is there a parting shot you would like to make to the audience?
No, the parting shot I'd like to make is the following. And I'm going to speak to the black people.
Okay.
I'm going to speak to the educated black people.
Okay.
The
Left or right, irrelevant.
The ones left or right, the ones who've got lots of money, not rich, I'm saying who've got lots of opinions, not money, right? Who are very eloquent about who should lead and so on. They appear to be unbothered and happy to accept a 74-year-old white woman from Cape Town who's going to be mayor of Johannesburg. I'm not saying this against Helen.
Wait, are you calling that DA is going to win Johannesburg?
No. I'm saying there is a capitulation of the black intelligentsia in as far as its willingness and ability to run its own country. People are capitulating. They've capitulated. The reason Helen is running is because she knows they've capitulated. She knows. That's why she can put up her hand, because she knows, right? Johannesburg shouldn't be falling apart. The depth of talent in Joburg, if you're looking for economic skills, political brains, and so on, the well is deep. But 74-year-old woman from Cape Town to live in her sister's backyard and run the biggest city in Africa or the biggest economy in Africa, man, wow. That's my parting shot. People need to reflect on that.
Well, one last question. So, and we've covered a lot of what is wrong and some of the challenges we have, and also you've brought solutions. What have you seen that gives you hope, or there was something we like, you know what, we can still do it, there's hope? What is it?
I'm sorry, I'm going to say that now that I'm closer to the action, I get depressed more than I get hopeful. Mostly because people either think that things will get better on their own, or people tend to increasingly back things which are very destructive. We actually are in a seriously critical moment in South Africa right now, right? And I worry that some of the work that some of us do, and there are lots of people, is just not gonna be enough to save. I am serious in saying to capable people of all races, of all genders, but particularly those black people who have lots to say about the future of the country, that they actually just need to fight for it. Otherwise, we've got a couple of years, and then it will be crickets.
once again, thank you for making time.
Thanks, TJ.
Guys, I hope you've gathered one of the important things, that we also need to change our behavior, voting behavior, and be more conscious and deliberate as to who we want to lead us. But in the meantime, you can like, subscribe, share, comments, and thank you for tuning in. Palatable Politics.